Hello YouTube, this is Balor Mage again, and today we're going to go over that Talkative Try interview with Jonathan Rogers. There's a bunch of new information that we got in there. This interview was only about an hour and 15, I think, long, which is pretty reasonable, but I have compiled our little TLDR of it, so if you don't have time to watch the whole thing, we'll skim through all of it as quick as possible, just the important bits to me. If you do have more time than that, I heavily suggest watching the whole thing. But the first thing I'm going to address is this. Let me jump into a screen. You may notice my hair looks blue as shit. It does not look blue in person. This is a picture from my phone, and this is the color of my hair, and for some reason it looks blue on the webcam, and I have so far spent about 6 hours trying to fix it without screwing up the rest of how I look. And apparently I don't know what I'm doing, because I cannot figure out why it looks so blue in the webcam instead of purple. Anyway, back into it. All right, so the first point, the one that I thought was a little bit interesting, is that Jonathan kind of offhandedly suggests Merc is probably the most noob friendly class. So if you feel like this game might be too difficult for you, or you're worried about its difficulty, starting Merc seems like a pretty good option. Next, they commented on flask removals and why they did them. Basically, it seems like from all of the reports they got, the reason they removed utility flasks is because nobody was using them correctly anyway. People were fumbling them, not using them at time. It was the reasons for death. People who had like freeze flasks get frozen, don't use the freeze flask, eventually die to it, stuff like that. The change from utility flask to charms is literally, hey, here's something we don't need you to do anymore. We just need you to build for it. You know, put the gear on that would deal with that problem and then have it dealt with automatically, which is cool. Next, and this is the most important bit, this is probably the most important thing in the entire interview, maybe. Balance changes during the early access. They plan to rush balance fixes for anything that's either incredibly broken or stupidly underpowered. So much so that we would expect that there might even be literally week 1 balance patches. However, new content updates will only come every 2 to 3 months. They're going to be working on new content all of the time, but they're going to bundle the new content into one big patch every 2 to 3 months whenever they've got enough of it, so that we have, like, you know, a reason to jump back into PoE 2 again. Maybe we're off playing PoE 1, few weeks into a league, and they're like, oh, here's a big balance patch. Oh, great, everyone come back and try the things. Or here's a big content patch, rather. Whereas balance patches will just be continuous. So don't get too attached to exactly how your character works. It might get balanced. What did I have next? Next up, we will be unable to change Ascendancies in PoE 2. For now, maybe? Basically, it seems like they're open to feedback for this, but at least at launch, you just will not be able to change Ascendancies. You will be able to change Ascendancy points. You'll be able to respec them, but you can't go from one Ascendancy to another like you can in PoE 1 now. You'll have to re-level a new character. Next up, they did have a little, a bunch of surveys that they ran while doing all of their like alpha work and testing on various groups and whatnot. And overall, the monk had the highest satisfaction score, which I guess is just how much fun did I have? How much did I enjoy this character? How satisfied was I? Monk had the highest and sorceress had the lowest. So maybe let that inform some of your choices for your first character. Next up, there will be no unarmed support at launch for the 17 people total who are really hoping to make a Facebreakers build. Facebreakers doesn't exist. There is no unarmed skill support in the game. There will be. It's on the list. It's just not on in early access. Ooh, another big one. using your weapon swap skill talents, so the ones that the talents on your passive tree that will change with your weapon set when you change to your off weapons, you cannot take keystones. Any keystones cannot be taken with that set. So we're looking at, you know, things like necrotic aegis, chaos inoculation, blood magic, that sort of stuff. Not allowed to take any of those. On the note of passive trees, there are 122 total skill points currently. We got an official explanation for the word overflow, the keyword overflow, which will appear in a bunch of different places, which essentially means you can double whatever resource that is. So if it says you can overflow life and you've got 1,000 life, you can have 2,000 life. You can overflow it up to 2,000, even though 1,000 is your max. That'll apply to life, energy, shield, mana, and anything else they put overflow on. That's what the keyword overflow will mean. Essentially, whatever double your maximum is. Great. They have done a lot of reworking on how rare monsters work. For instance, some monsters just won't even be able to be rares. The example they gave was zombies. Like, a rare zombie just isn't anything. On top of that, they have rebalanced a bunch of mobs so that the normal version compared to the rare version will actually like behave differently. They might get extra skills or extra speed or extra things that make it make sense to make a rare. So with the intent here being your rare monsters should feel significantly more interesting than they do in PoE 1. We'll see how that plays out, but it sounds good in theory unless I'm one-shotting rares as I run past them, which presumably I'm not. All right, next up, during the mapping experience, one-shots are supposed to not happen anymore. Now, they were very clear that they are still happening right now, even in maps. There are mobs with 10 times the damage numbers they should have. They're trying hard to balance everything properly. The important bit is not that they won't be there, but that the goal is random one-shots from like off-screen, things you just couldn't have seen, couldn't have avoided, hopefully aren't supposed to happen eventually. This will not be the way it is when we log in on day one. It's important you know you will still get one shot. However, the goal of PoE 2 seems to be that if and when you die, it should always feel like it was at least somewhat your fault. Like there was something you could have done, positioning you could have done better, skill rotations you could have done better, you could have blocked something, you could have dodged something, you could have done something was your fault. If they reach that goal, that'll feel absolutely fantastic. I don't think I've ever been angry at deaths that felt like they were my fault. I've only ever been angry at deaths where I was like, what was I meant to do there? What was I meant to do there? A projectile came in at Mach 11 from off screen on a mob I didn't even know existed and one-tapped me. And like, that makes me upset. When it's my fault, I just feel like, ooh, I could get better. So hopefully we reach that goal. On that note though, mobs do get movement skills. Exiles do not get movement skills. I guess we can cry about it. Next up, Waystones, which is our tier of map, only go up to tier 15. Tier 15 is the maximum Waystone. There is a corruption outcome that's +1 that can get us a 16, and it seems as if that's as high as it goes. The tier, what is it? Tier 79, I think we saw. Waystone from one of the videos. That was either a mistake or a mistype or something old. Irrelevantly, it will only go up to tier 15. Some great news. The trade site, they have every intention of having it fully working on day one, which means we get to use all of our public stash tabs again. We get to use our dump tab strategies. We get to just sell stuff to people. I imagine nobody will know what anything is worth. So at this point, my suggestion is going to be, if you see something you want and you have the thing for it, just buy it. What's the worst that can happen? You find out it was worth 10 times that much later on. You find out it was worth nothing later on. Who knows? We don't know what anything's going to be worth. Some items on the trade will not have all the information they have on PoE 1. So if you're like looking for gems, you're just going to see the gem name and the level it is, not the current XP and probably not the quality. There's a lot of little things that won't have as much information, but the whole trade site should work. We'll be able to do full trade right off the bat. They clarified that the cruel run through of the campaign where we're going to do those first 3 acts again will still have all of its unique rewards that are supposed to be in the second half of the game. So all of the like plus stats or extra passives or plus resistance mobs where you're supposed to like kill them to get that like permanent reward to the character for plus 10 cold res, plus 10 fire res, 2 passive points, like all those things, they will all still be there. We'll just be killing the same group again on a slightly harder setting, but they're all just placeholders for when we get the last 3 acts anyway, so I'm fine with that. Oh, we got some clarification on what the advanced tiers of items are. So the ones that said like advanced, expert, things like that, we saw them on items on the ground and we wondered what they could be. And the answer is those are copies of the stats that the base type of items would have from Act 4, 5, and 6. However, those items that would be from Act 4, 5, and 6 would also give us a bunch of spoilers. So they didn't want to actually show us any of the items that could have dropped on 4, 5, or 6. So instead they copied the raw stats of those items and made those like expert and advanced versions of other items that just have the higher stats. So those will be the higher level bases, I guess, but then they're not special and they'll eventually get removed. However, the tier will still be important. The tiers will still have better roles whenever it says tier 2, tier 3, tier 5. But importantly, there was some clarification here. The tier of those items will only affect what it's going to identify into, not how it would roll. So you don't need a good tier 1 for like crafting your own gear. Doesn't need to be a high tier. That the crafting of your own gear, it won't matter what tier it was. That tier isn't actually part of the item. It's just sort of the luck of the draw. When it rolled, it hit the right number to like roll lucky essentially, or something of that nature to make that a better averagely rolled item on the floor. No effect to your crafting at all. Somebody finally directly asked whether there will be rune words or not. There will not be rune words. To no one's surprise, but it is good to get some confirmation. The one other thing we did learn is that runes are not removable from gear. We're told this won't really be a big problem. We'll have more than enough runes. We'll level up and get better runes anyway. It'll be fine. And lastly, all vendor recipes seem to have been removed. There are no vendor recipes the same way we have them in PoE 1, where you like vendor the correct set of items together and then you get this other item. Those things have all been replaced by the various different ways that there are to sell things now. Like, you know, you want armor scraps or the socket currency and you go disenchant the thing, and you want gold, you sell it over here. And all of the different vendors that we're going to have should cover most of those needs for us. All right. That's all from this interview. Again, there is way more in this interview than just that. Those are just the highlight little cliff notes that I took. But if you've got time, you should definitely watch the whole hour 10, hour 15, however long it was. It was great. There's only just over a week left. I am desperately gagging for more information, so can't wait. And I will see everybody next time. Goodbye.